everyone, Aimer back with another Mission Impossible episode review. This time we've got Season 4, Episode 6, which is called Commandante. So Jim goes to a bowling alley for instructions for this one. The mission is to rescue Father Paolo Dominguin, who is a leader of a democratic revolution in his country, who's being held by a Far East-backed faction which is trying to take over his revolution and co-opt it, led by international agent Acero and local guy Martillo. It's just the guys in this one. It's an A-team episode with no female agent. We learn that Acero and Martillo are bitter rivals and they want to kill Dominguin, but can't do it without angering the locals and losing their support. Off we go to the city of Lagonas, where all of our main characters are at, and the town's mayor Esparto argues with Acero about releasing the priest, who is universally loved. Acero says he can't do it, as he now believes that the U.S. is supporting Dominguin and the government in order to maintain control over the country. He promises not to hurt Dominguin, but urges the people to realize what is really going on. Jim arrives as part of the Friends of Religion, a charity group which Acero is certain is a front for U.S. intelligence, and is allowed up the mountain's pass after a search. Martillo tries to get Dominguin to sign a confession before being set up to be hung in what will look like a suicide, but Acero stops him and chides him for a stupid plan that no one would believe. Dominguin flatly denies he's working with American interests and gets in a good verbal shot at Acero, saying at least he's in control of his own revolution. Jim meets with Acero and says he might be willing to make the wise PR move of releasing Dominguin in exchange for much-needed food, medical supplies, weapons. Jim sheepishly says he'll see what can be done, and soon it is Willie's turn to arrive with a supply truck containing boxes of all sorts of things, including weapons, and Barney hidden inside. Acero is supremely pleased at his own cleverness, as he figures that only the Americans could and would act so quickly. On the way up the pass, Willie takes a short detour into an enclave, letting Barney out with a whackload of equipment and releasing Acero's carrier pigeon with a message before continuing up the pass. But a mirror falls out of the truck. Jim meets with Dominguin, with Acero and his crew listening, and the priest says he doesn't want his help if it means providing instruments of death to the revolutionaries, and tells Jim he's being played, as Acero will take the weapons but won't let them leave. Jim lets out that he has a plan of his own to get Dominguin out, piquing Acero's interest, as Jim points out the bug to the priest and outlines his plan, involving a risky ride through the rugged terrain. Martillo is overjoyed to learn what they have planned, but Acero quickly reminds him that the Americans aren't dumb like he is. They know the cell is bugged, and he only listened to figure out what they wanted him to know. Paris arrives as Major Shen from the Far East People's Republic, which is totally not China, as per the pigeon's message, as Barney continues to assemble stuff. After a few scenes, it's clear that he is literally building a helicopter. Willie delivers the weapons to Acero and wants to head out with Jim and Dominguin, but Acero tells him that he'll have to wait until he's ready, and Willie is put into the cell with the other two. Paris, as Shen, asks Acero why Dominguin is still alive, and Acero brings in Esparto to demonstrate the town's love for the priest, as they're all convinced he's not working for the U.S. Even the fact that the supposed religious group brought in guns is dismissed by the fact that Acero would accept nothing else. Claiming that he's touched by their devotion to him, Acero says he'll release the priest and the Americans, to Esparto's joy, demonstrating to Shen that he could not touch the priest because it would make the whole country hate them. He tells Shen that as soon as he learns how the group really plans to escape, he'll set up an accident that will leave them all blameless. Shen asks Martillo what he thinks, and the answer is quite predictable. He wants to kill Dominguin at once, and Shen agrees despite the potential backlash, angering Acero, who says he won't participate in a plan that is doomed to fail. Shen questions Martillo about Acero's conceit, megalomania, and pattern of putting others down, indicating that it might be necessary for Martillo to take over, and he wants Martillo to watch Acero like a hawk. The mirror that fell out of Willie's car is found, leading Acero and his crew to Barney's U.S. intelligence helicopter. Paris watches his Jeep come back, and Acero tells him that he has made a plan. The helicopter will accidentally crash, and in it will be found documents indicating that Dominguin is working with the U.S. and the current repressive government. Paris Shen says he doesn't like it. He thinks it's too risky, but Acero assures him he can make it work. At the helicopter, Barney hears a woman crying for help and goes to have a look, allowing Martillo's man Ortiz a chance to loosen the helicopter blades. He finds the soldier getting a little bit too handsy with the woman and knocks a would-be attacker out, upsetting the girl who didn't want the man to be hurt. Barney rushes back to the copter as Ortiz sneaks away, apparently suspecting nothing. Jim, Willie, and Dominguin are freed as per Acero's orders, with the priest promising to come back to the town when it is safe for him to do so. Acero tells Esparto to join his group in watching what unfolds, to prove what he has been saying all along. They follow Jim's car to the helicopter, which takes off, but quickly seems to develop trouble, crashing in a fiery explosion. Esparto is crushed, but Acero sadly reminds him that Dominguin would have been safe if only he had left on the ground and trusted him. Martillo is tasked with bringing the bodies back to town, but returns soon and shockingly tells everyone that there aren't any bodies. Paris suggests that they examine the takeoff site, and a small underground trap door is found, containing a remote control and a canister of compressed air, indicating the helicopter contained inflated balloons to simulate people, and clearly Dominguin has escaped, nixing all of their plans. Acero says they can still win the revolution with the weapons they have, as Paris sets off a detonator, which blows up their entire arsenal, thanks to explosives and the weapons the IMF delivered earlier. Shen strips Acero of his command, saying that he's become careless out of pride, and Acero tries to shoot him, but Martillo shoots Acero instead, saying he's in control now. Ortiz pointedly asks exactly what he is in control of. Dominguin has basically won at this point. Paris leaves the camp and picks up the IMF and Dominguin on the way out, with Barney commenting that it didn't take him long to sabotage the helicopter blades properly, or it would have never taken off. Mission accomplished. I'm going to give this episode a grade of A-. I think that there's really a lot of good things to say about it. First and foremost, let's talk about the guest stars. This is Lawrence Dane's best role on the show by far. We've already seen him once in Season 2 in the episode called The Survivors, and we will see him once more in Season 6 in an episode called Encounter, and that'll be a really fun one to talk about. But this is definitely his best role. I love the way that he's able to act just with his eyes and his facial expression. Really, really, really like him. Also, I must mention, he happens to be Canadian as well. I'm just amazed at how many actors born in Canada are on this show. And sadly, I looked it up. He passed away. We lost Mr. Dane less than a month ago on March 21st. And he was actually living in a place called Niagara-on-the-Lake, which is literally 90 minutes from my house. I didn't know that. R.I.P. Lawrence Dane. Sid Haig has a lot of fun in this episode, and I really like the way he gets. I almost feel like he's kind of just being his normal self. He's being like this boisterous character, boisterous, loud, animated character, and he gets to do it really, really well as Martillo. Love that. And Arthur Batanides as the quiet and subdued Father Dominguin also plays his role really, really well. Great, great, great acting by the entire guest star cast. A neat thing that I wanted to mention, there's a point in the episode where Lawrence Dane's character, Acero, comments on how the Americans like to use religious groups as a front for a lot of their, activity, and how he mentions that Americans think God is one of them. And, proud Canadian boy, I guess. What else can you say? Also, a couple of things that are really, really awesome in this episode. The IKEA helicopter, I don't know what else to call it, with Barney literally building a helicopter out of parts that come in boxes. In, I guess, what amounts to an afternoon. That's just like that just came out of nowhere, and it's really, really, really incredible how it actually looks like. I bet he could probably pull it off, right? Almost like the professor from Gilligan's Island, just building stuff out of almost nothing. Just great technique in this episode. And speaking of which, the overall technique. I've talked before about the Kansas City Shuffle, about how the IMF often uses this technique of, convincing their target, their mark, that he or she has figured out what they're going to do. And then they go in a completely different direction. As a misdirection play, the IMF's methodology in this episode is almost unparalleled. Only in really, really awesome episodes like The Mind of Stefan Miklos will you find a better Kansas City Shuffle than you see in this one. They convince Acero that he's figured out their whole plan, but they have a completely different plan. Amazing. This is also a bit of a pennies from heaven plot in a sense, in that, the IMF is kind of giving their target exactly what he wants. Acero is looking for a way to have Dominguin have an accident but not be blamed for it. Given the amount of effort the IMF expends here, I can't fault Acero for doing what he did. A lot of the times in a pennies from heaven plot, we see that the mark will basically just kind of grab onto the pennies as quickly as possible without really doing a lot of due diligence. In this one, the team really, really earns their win. For the amount of effort they go through, it's first class. This kind of shifted in a little bit of a different direction. Leonard Nimoy has a very, very interesting character here. This isn't the last time he's actually going to play somebody, from the Far East. There's going to be another episode next season, and that'll be a whole other thing to talk about. A little weird, but by today's standards, but I'm guessing for the late 60s. It was passable. I guess maybe American audiences figured that it's fine that he was able to pull that off. It's okay. It didn't really bother me that much. Also good, the antagonists drive the action here. I like that basically the bulk of the action centers around, Acero and Martillo and, them spending a little bit of time with Paris as Major Shen, but they drive the action. There's no wasted time. There's no wasted effort, which I think is really, really good. No plotting, no padding in this episode. That leads me into a little bit of the counterpoint, though. The only reason I give this episode an A- is, even though I would say it's definitely in the good category about the antagonist driving the action in a way that makes sense, the counterpoint is that it does mean that Acero and Martillo are a little bit on the lame side. They're not schmucks. I mean, Martillo isn't really the sharpest knife in the drawer, but Acero is obviously very intelligent. They're both very, very engaging. But they are somewhat easy to manipulate for different reasons, and the it seems so simple. Maybe simple is the wrong word, but it doesn't seem all that difficult for the IMF to take these two through the steps that they want them to go through. Which is a little bit of the sign of lameness. Because Acero is so intelligent and so focused on achieving his goal, the IMF is able to manipulate him in a certain direction. Because Martillo feels like he's playing second fiddle to this guy and wants to be in control, and he's just, a boots on the ground soldier, he's also easy to manipulate. So the IMF is able to fairly easily, I'll say, let's put it that way, manipulate these guys due to their lameness. To kind of put it in a different way, it never really seems like the mission is at risk. It doesn't really seem like anything is necessarily going wrong, except for a couple of small points. It's what happens with the helicopter. We think, oh gosh, they sabotaged the helicopter. Oh gosh, they Willie dropped a mirror, and oh gosh, the helicopter crashed, right? And then when we find out that the IMF had all of that planned, then if you think backwards, you say to yourself, oh well, okay, they had these. They were 2 steps ahead of these guys every step of the way. So I can't really put these guys as antagonists up at that kind of top-notch level. Um, all in all, it is a very, very entertaining episode. It doesn't have as much rewatch value, perhaps, as some other episodes might, because once you know what happens, I mean, you can watch it unfold again, but it's not the kind of thing that you want to rewind and watch over again. You've already seen, kind of the twists and turns. I would say that's also a little bit of a strike against it, but I'm going to stick with my grade of A minus, probably right on the border of A minus and B plus, but I like it because of the things that I mentioned, so I'm going to stick with an A minus. And let's leave it at that. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate it. Please like this video. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and please leave your comments. And I'll see you next time.